Jeopardy! Fans are calling out the show for its incredibly confusing category and rage it was unfair for Ken Jennings to not accept a contestant's answer. Viewers were disappointed and perplexed by the conditions of Monday's game, which included a special category to celebrate the upcoming Wicked movie release. Paul Clausen, a tax analyst from Madison Heights, Michigan, returned with hopes to extend his one-day earnings of $15,201. He went up against Jonelle Lonergan, a product manager from Boston, Massachusetts, and Amy Fleenor, an attorney from Cleveland, Ohio. Host Ken, 50, walked onto the set to introduce the first batch of categories in the Jeopardy! Round. Today's episode included James Abram Garfield, a turn of Latin phrase, black, simoleons, moolah, scratch, money, at the British Museum in the final category that stumped fans, Wicked. The film stars Ariana Grande, 31, and Cynthia Erivo, 37, who introduced the category to the trio of contestants and plugged their upcoming film. Paul was first to take a stab at Wicked, although he looked unsure of his decision when he asked for the $800 clue. Wicked's director John M. Chu read out the answer in a pre-recorded video message. Before I even directed Wicked, I could envision it up on the big screen. And now, we invite audiences to step inside the magical world of Oz to enjoy this type of 9-letter experience. Paul guessed wonderful, which is 9 letters and makes sense given the Wonderful Wizard of Oz is a famous catchphrase from the musical, the book as well as the movie. However, Ken informed the returning champ that was not the correct response they were looking for, though it did technically match the criteria. Jonelle buzzed in next and said, "What is immersive?" which was the correct response. Fans immediately took online to express their confusion over the category as well as their frustration with Ken not accepting particular words. "I'm tired of these incredibly confusing categories just to plug something like a movie. Really unfair to the contestants who are not technically wrong," one person raged. Another questioned, "Is it just me or is that absolutely not pinned at all? What makes Paul's guess of wonderful, as in Wonderful Wizard, wrong? What would make my at-home guess of cinematic wrong?" A third asked, "Would cinematic have been accepted? I wasn't entirely sure what they were aiming for." One more quipped it was wickedly upsetting of Ken not to accept Paul's answer, which they claim actually makes more sense than the actual response. Heading into Final Jeopardy, Paul set himself up for another runaway lead. He had $21,200 going into the last round, far ahead of Jonelle with $8,000 and Amy's $6,800. The category was American Women as the contestants placed their wagers. In 1900 she told a Mr. Dobson, "Get out of the way. I don't want to strike you, but I am going to break up this den of vice," Ken read. Who was Carrie Nation, was the correct question the judges were looking for. While Jonelle was the only correct response, raising her total to $15,999, she wasn't able to surpass Paul, who was strategic with his wager. Risking just $1, Paul dropped to $21,099 for a 2-day total of $36,300. Wicked comes out in theaters nationwide on November 22, 2024. The game show Jeopardy! Has long been a staple of intellectual entertainment, known for its challenging trivia questions and complex categories. However, a recent episode sparked outrage among fans, leaving many to question the fairness of a ruling made by host Ken Jennings. A controversial category. The episode in question featured a category titled It's All Relative, which immediately puzzled the contestants and the audience alike. The category's description, provided by Jennings, was vague, stating that it involved terms that relate to familial relationships but might not always mean what they seem. Contestants quickly realized this was no ordinary trivia topic, as the clues were rife with wordplay, double meanings, and historical references. One clue read, "This term for a distant male relative was also used to describe a famous uncle known for cartoon hijinks." The correct response, "What is Uncle Scrooge?" was eventually guessed correctly, but not before all 3 contestants appeared visibly confused by the convoluted connection between familial terms and fictional characters. Fans immediately took to social media to vent their frustrations. "This category was an absolute mess," wrote one Twitter user. "How are contestants supposed to connect random family terms with obscure pop culture references in 20 seconds? Another added, "This isn't trivia, it's a guessing game." The incident that sparked outrage. The controversy peaked during the $1,000 clue in the same category. This term for a female relative has also been used to describe an unrelated woman who inspires or mentors someone. One contestant, Sarah, buzzed in confidently and responded, "What is Auntie?" Jennings, however, did not accept her answer, explaining, "Sorry, we were looking for what is Aunt." The ruling immediately drew audible gasps from the studio audience and a stunned expression from Sarah, who had been leading at the time. The ruling cost Sarah $1,000 in her lead, ultimately affecting the outcome of the game. Her bewildered expression lingered as she tried to refocus, but the damage was done. Viewers were quick to call foul, with many arguing that auntie and aunt are interchangeable in colloquial English. Social media backlash. Twitter erupted with criticism of Jennings' decision. Fans argued that the distinction between aunt and auntie was unnecessarily pedantic and unfair to Sarah. "Ken Jennings is being way too strict," one viewer tweeted. "Aunt and auntie mean the same thing. He robbed her of a fair chance." Another posted, "Jeopardy is supposed to test knowledge, not nitpick regional language differences." This was ridiculous. Reddit forums dedicated to the show also saw heated discussions. One thread titled "Unfair Rulings Are Ruining Jeopardy" garnered hundreds of comments within hours. One fan pointed out that Jennings had previously been more lenient with other contestants on similar matters, accusing him of inconsistency. "I've seen him accept synonyms before. Why not this time?" Ken Jennings responds. As the backlash grew, Jennings addressed the controversy during a post-episode interview with a local news station. Jeopardy has strict rules about accepting responses, especially when they involve variations in language, he explained. "While I understand the frustration, the word aunt was explicitly written in the clue. The judges and I are required to adhere to the exact phrasing provided." His response did little to quell the uproar. Many fans felt his explanation lacked empathy and failed to acknowledge the broader issue of fairness. "You're splitting hairs, Ken," one fan replied to his statement on social media. "It's about the spirit of the game, not rigid technicalities." Former contestants weigh in. Several former contestants weighed in on the drama, with some defending Jennings and others siding with the outraged fans.